Hi, this is Dustin from CurbNTurf. You're listening to The Recurring Plot, which talks about all things RVs and how to make more recurring income from your property. Today, we're excited to have Jed on the show with us. Thanks for joining us today, Jed.
Hi, Dustin.
So, for those that don't know you, Jed, why don't you just give a brief introduction about yourself?
I'm Jed Smith. I'm a developer at CurbNTurf, so I work with Dustin on a regular basis.
Yeah, so we pretty much know each other and we're pretty much family, and we'll get into that. So, where are you from?
I spent most of my life here in Payette, Idaho, which is actually where CurbNTurf is headquartered, is in the Payette.
I'm from Payette as well. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family?
So my wife and I, we have four kids, two boys and two girls, so pretty balanced. I suppose when I was growing up, and it was two boys and five girls, so we never won when it was selecting movies. So I did a lot of
A
things
lot of
away from
music.
the TV.
Yeah, so probably a lot of musicals in your family, if I remember right.
Musicals, yeah, a lot of like what a Gene
Gene
Audrey
Kelly,
did,
Gene Andre. Oh,
yeah, like and stuff. Anyway, so I that encouraged my brother and I to spend a lot of time outside.
well, that's good. And those that probably sparked some of your interests. So what kind of interests do you have?
I I have a lot of different interests. Like growing up, like I said, my brother and I would spend a lot of time outside. In fact, my family, like my mom's parents, they had a ranch here in Payette, and growing up, we'd spend quite a bit of time out there playing in the little creek that ran through their property, building dams and trying to make rafts out of cattails and stuff that never actually worked, but it was lots of fun.
And so that was when you're younger. What kind of things do you like to enjoy in your adult life? Because I remember that. I remember doing fun things when I was a kid, like building forts and stuff like that. So what did that spark into anything in your adulthood?
So there's a few things. I still enjoy spending time outside. We regularly, once a month during the summer, we're normally out camping with my family. I also do some blacksmithing on the side for fun. We have the property that we own, it has a bunch of trees, a bunch of poplar trees that were planted years ago, and so cut those down and mill them into wood to make wood projects. So, a lot of like I guess the constructive properties. I'm not really design oriented, so I make stuff that has flat pieces of wood, but it's pretty fun.
Didn't you even buy? You bought a mill, is,
Yep,
didn't you?
yep. We have
And
we have a mill. It's like a bandsaw mill, so we can mill boards out of the poplar and the other trees that are in on the property to make whatever wood we want.
cool. And then, do you have any kind of animals or anything else on your property or anything
Um,
of interest?
my wife, she raises llamas. I give her full credit for raising the llamas. And we also have a few chickens. Plus, we always get lots of deer traveling through the property, eating all of the garden or trees that we've planted for fruit. Haven't actually had a fruit
Right.
tree grow all the way up yet because of the deer.
Oh no. Right, that's true. I mean, because you're right near the river, right? Is
Yeah,
this the Snake River?
yep, the Snake River. And so we get a lot of deer migrating up through there into
Yeah.
farmers' fields and stuff.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, Jed and I are actually cousins. I moved into my best friend's house when I was younger, which is actually Jed's cousin. So my best friend, I call him my brother basically. And so Jed and I pretty much we've known each other for over 20 years. So this property he's talking about is the same property he grew up. Well, why don't you tell that?
Yeah,
Because your family, you moved, right?
right. And so um, when I was, I think about 13, my grandpa, my dad's parents, so like both of my parents' parents lived in the Payette area, but we are actually on the other side of Idaho, down Pocatello area, and we moved up to Payette because dad transferred to place he was working. He transferred up to one in the area. So when he transferred up there, he talked to my grandpa, and he sort of split up his land and sold several chunks of it to his kids. So my dad bought some, and one of his brothers, and actually his sister, Sandy, which is um, yes, your mom, right? That, and so we split that up, and so we bought that, and we built our house when I was 13 to 14 during the summer, and what time we had, I spent a lot of time working on building the house. And then when my dad retired, we ended up buying the house from them and taking over it. And we still have like built an apartment for them in the garage, half of the garage, so that they have a place my parents can stay when they're not traveling. But they like to travel a lot, so they're often not around. But it's nice having the same place that we grew up in.
So that was one of the fun things when I remember growing up is going over to your house because you guys also had the dock.
Yep.
Yeah, you had the dock that went into the river at that time,
Hmm.
and then not only that, your brother was into gymnastics, so you guys kind of had almost the whole upstairs was just an adventure for me at least, like just kind of cool things that your brother would use for training. Like I remember the pommel horse. You guys had rings, right?
Right.
I think you
Yep.
still. And then there's just this big, just open area, and then it's really cool. Not only that, they still have a climbing wall. So
Yep.
there's the climbing wall. So really come from an active family, not only, where you're have sisters in your family where you probably were staying away from certain things like you mentioned earlier, and it sparked you to probably explore other things like whether it's the outdoors and things like that, which I think is cool. Your brother kind of did the same thing where he was into gymnastics, he was in his own thing. Yeah,
Yep.
it was fun. It was fun times. I remember those.
Yep. Yep. It was good. We also started playing some computer games. I remember playing with, I forget who all it was, but I remember waking up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I forget why we were doing it to play. I don't even remember what game it was. We were playing a game, so we'd hop on and play on the internet with like I remember at least your brother did it a couple times, and I was just like, oh, I still don't know why
Yeah.
we did that.
So for those that we're like, most of the guys are nerds in our family too. I mean, not that it's not a bad thing. It sparked what we kind of do today, and that we're going to go into that. And it kind of probably planted the seeds of what some of the things that you enjoy, what you do for work, a more technical side, obviously dealing with computers. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Talk about your role at CurbNTurf. How'd you get started, for one? How did it present yourself? Kind of tell the origin story about what you do now, I guess.
Let's see, where did it start? So I like I've been a programmer for quite a few years. When I was a teenager, I started doing some programming, and then after college, I thought I wanted to do teaching, so I taught for a year and decided that wasn't for me. And then I switched back into programming. So I've been programming full time since 2009. And then a few years ago, I signed up for a class in the area that like how to start or grow your own business. And during that, I met Aaron Rollins. I think he was more there to be like sort of a mentoring role because he definitely had the whole business thing figured out. But he, I met him there and talked about his idea for CurbNTurf, and that eventually led to me starting to work there for him. So I've been there from the beginning of CurbNTurf, like as far as the actual development of the project. Aaron had spent a year or two working out kind of what he wanted out of CurbNTurf. So I've been there from the beginning. I've taken the role of like I'm the lead developer, planning out how things are going to work, what we need to do to make it work. And I created the first iteration all by myself, basically, with just talking with Aaron and looking at the market. And then, once I got to there, I being the developer and not the designer, I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, even though this is functional and would work, we're not going to be able to convince anyone to use it. So that's when we started looking for designers, and we interviewed quite a few. I was able to talk Dustin into it, or I guess I talked to your dad or brother. I forget actually how it was that I was able to convince you to come in and interview for it, but
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll tell you, 'cause I don't think I told this story yet on any of the podcasts. So Jed was pretty much doing everything, like he mentioned, it was like also the design part, which everything was functioning the way it's supposed to, because that's what Jed does. Everything functions the way it's supposed to, which is great. So they had a good base. And for those that, well, how about, can you describe what Curb and Turf is for those maybe their first time listeners? What's Curb and Turf exactly?
so CurbNTurf is basically like Airbnb, but instead of finding houses or rooms you can stay in, it's about finding places where people with RVs can spend the night in their RV. Where they can go there, they can spend the night, spend the day or a couple of days. Sort of like as hosts, so landowners can host their site to RVers to come and stay for a visit.
So, and this is a market that's obviously been booming the last 5 years at least. And then just because there's tons of RVs being sold, being manufactured, but just not enough places for them to go. So there's a huge need for RVers for the places where they need to stay at. So there's that need, and then there's also people that just want to have more independence, right? So if you do have land or anything and you're able to host RVers, they love those experiences because they are willing to have adventures. They're looking to go out, and they're confined into their own space because they're in their RV, right? Uh, so again, it was my dad that told me about it. I was working for a big grocery chain that's headquartered in Boise. I think there's, yeah, maybe a big one that is headquartered in Boise, and that's the one that I was working with. And I was actually um, doing a lot of their national campaigns for sales and for their in store signage, and I did a bunch of stuff. It was just I was getting to a point where I was getting frustrated. I didn't like the whole corporate aspect of my job because I wasn't like I just felt like I was a cog basically. And it at this time it was getting I was literally in a meeting with my boss's boss where he was like, "Hey, is everything good?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." Like there's just miscommunication, and I hope that everyone's on the. It is a big drama fest. Anyways, at the same time, my phone is buzzing in my pocket, and it's my dad. And so he left a voicemail. I get out of the meeting because I'm about to go on vacation. This is like November 2000. I can't remember 2018 or 19. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
one of those.
I can't remember. It's they all it yeah. So my dad, I listened to this voicemail. My dad's like, "Hey, there's this guy that moved from California into to Payette, and that's Aaron, who you're talking about. And he's looking to start a business. Why don't you talk to him?" I was like, "I'm not interested in a job." But long story short, I ended up talking with Aaron probably for a couple hours. I went in there, and our headquarters is actually in the middle of nowhere. Literally, is like you have to like Payette is kind of isolated, but enough. But we're all like you have to travel like 10-15 minutes just to get to work, right?
Yep, yep. It's about
Uh,
10-15 minutes from Payette. And I live outside of Payette on
right,
the other side of Payette from CurbNTurf, so it takes me
right,
about 25 minutes to get there.
right. So the cool story, long story short, he told me his idea, what he was trying to do. They showed me what they had. They showed me their competitors. I was like, well, this is what their competitors are doing correctly, what they're doing wrong. I ended up coming on, which was a great opportunity because that was ultimately what I wanted to do was do UX UI design. But then like I believe in the product, obviously we obviously believe in Curb and Turf. That's one of the reasons why we do the podcast. One of the reasons why we are being so proactive, going outside of our job or whatever, and trying to promote it. Again, it's a cool story. Like there's a whole like a lot of things that end up happening to where I was able to work with Jed, Jed started developing the website based on the designs, and a lot of the designs were kind of antiquated at that time. So we ended up kind of going through three versions of the website from what it currently is right now. Because there's Jed's version, then my first version, then we had the second version of that. So yeah. So tell me about your favorite part of your job.
Well,
What do you like doing what you do?
so what I really like doing is when working on, like, as a developer, my favorite part of the development is, I guess, fixing problems. So, like, actually, like when I have a list of bugs on the project, like that people found that I need to fix, like I actually really like that, going through and checking off things once they're fixed, or fixing like more general problems by creating the product. But it's like, for me, it's more about fixing problems than it is about building something. So CurbNTurf, it fixes a problem by connecting people to, people together, people who own land and people who have RVs, so it fixes that problem. So I really enjoyed that. But when I have I guess my favorite part is the days when I have something that I need to figure out that takes, it's going to take some brain power to figure out what specifically needs to happen. But it's like the days when I'm just in the flow and everything's working, and I get there to work, and then it's time to leave, and I'm like, oh, what happened to the day? But those are the time when things are just working right, and yeah, I'm just finding solutions and making progress.
Mhm. That's part of the reasons why I totally agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I signed up for the job, because I saw an opportunity, for one, and then two, the problem that we were there was in the industry, like you're talking about, where there's just so many RVs being built, but not enough places for them to go. So having this platform like Curb and Turf, where you're having hosts on this platform where they can invite RVers onto their property and get paid for it. And it's, hosts are going to be making money, and then RVers are going to have a place to stay. So it's basically, solving a lot of people's problems. So when you have a solution for multiple problems, which it's just kind of neat. And then that in itself, there's problems within a problem, right? Just because once you build the platform like we've done, we've there's hours and hours of development, um, and
Hmm.
where we have to determine what's important for the end user. We have to know, that base, both sides, hosts and RVers, travelers. So, how have you seen the platform grow on Curb and Turf?
So when I first started working on the design, it was, just very basic, sort of just what you needed to know um, to get, I guess, from point A to point B, to just the minimum you need to connect things up. And since in some ways, in other ways, I had way too much information that I was trying to deal with, and just, the big wall of text and stuff that people had to answer to create the sum. So that's one of those things that you help fix a lot. But like, it's um, so going from that to where it is now, where we do have a lot of information that the hosts can enter to make it easier for the RVer. A lot of details like how to get there, and providing extra benefits like a la carte options and stuff. But, the to actually just get the site listed and hosted, you just really need a few pictures, a description of your site, and um, that's pretty much all you really need to get it listed. So it's gone from, you know, sort of, I guess, started out really simple, and I added a bunch of stuff and made it really complicated, and then we came in and since then, over the two iterations, we've got it down to where, someone can enter in the information quickly to get their site up and listed so people can start finding them, but then they can add more if they have an interest in adding more, and if they understand more as they work with more
Yeah,
RVers and stuff.
yeah, I think it's really cool to see kind of like the arc of everything, or where we started and where we are now. And then we're still, obviously, we're continuing on developing, we're continuing on solving problems. We're always, for we're pretty much like a four-man team, three,
Hmm.
4 or 5. So we like it's impressive for I hate to well, we're it's like a brag. We're kind of but it's a humble brag to where like for the amount of manpower that we have and what we've done, like it's crazy because there's companies that are 10 times bigger than us, more than that, that don't offer the same type of features, don't offer the same type of service that we offer. I mean, I could say that just because we study the market all the time. And it's pretty awesome to see even being small. And, oh, and maybe you could talk about that. What's the benefit of having a small team in development versus having a larger team?
So there's a couple of benefits. I mean, the disadvantage is, you don't have as many people working on it and stuff, but the advantage of having a small team is that it's a lot easier to pivot if something changes, you know, you don't have to get buy-in from 50 or 60 people or, from the leaders, and then they have to convince all of the teams to do it. So like able to change directions quicker when we realize something's not working. And also it's a lot easier to communicate. So we can spend more time writing code and less time having to communicate with everyone to make sure that we're not breaking and stepping on each other's toes while working on it. So I mean those are some of the main advantages.
Yeah, because if you guys haven't heard our previous podcast, we had our second episode. We had Scott Henscheiding. He's in charge. He's the lead developer on the app,
Hmm.
and then Jed is basically handles everything else, especially on the main website. So I completely agree. By having that small team, we're able to pivot a lot quicker, and that's one of the things I love about CurbNTurf is that we decide together what works, and not all the time we agree because I tend to play devil's advocate a lot, where I'm like, oh, maybe we should do this instead of that, and but I think it's good that we work really well, and that's something I'm really proud of at CurbNTurf, that we have a team that's just so dedicated to what we're doing, and that we believe wholeheartedly in what we're doing. So a lot of times, because I come from a corporate environment where you kind of lose those interests, or you kind of you just don't have that camaraderie, or it's just different, and I'm really grateful that we have that on our team. Why don't you talk a little bit more about being a landowner? What's the best part about owning your property for you?
So, like I mentioned earlier, we bought this property from my parent, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. But it's nice because we can do what we want with the land. We can, I added a blacksmith shop just because we have llamas on our property. We have a bunch of trees. My parents planted them because that was I guess, sort of like the way to maximize your sales that people thought you're going to be able to make lots of money from, but never able to sell them. So could have lots of poplar trees that get it cut down and turn into lumber.
So what's the hardest part about owning a property for you?
The hardest part is probably just, we have over 20 acres. We have llamas and chickens, and we have land that the llamas are on, and we have land that needs to be mowed, and we have fences that need to be maintained, and just sort of like general maintenance on the land constantly. I'd much rather be off playing than, up in the mountains or doing blacksmithing or milling or something rather than, mowing and that sort of stuff. So that's probably
Right.
the hardest. Like, I mean, I don't mind the work, but you know, there's other things I would rather do. And some of that
Yeah.
comes with being next to the river, so if it floods and stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's always been a worry. I mean, when like we worried about that because when I was younger, or even recently, like we had snow years, like they're just wet years, I guess, where there's a lot of moisture, and then that runs into the river, and then that runs right next to your property.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's got to be stressful.
Yeah, we've never actually had it get up to the house yet though, so It's always been like at least a couple feet away. And so, yeah, it has been. But then, it brings in stuff that you have to clean up afterwards because the Snake River is not a very clean river.
No. Well, and you guys are next to, so people that don't know, there's like there's a big island. I'm not sure what it's called now. It used to be called Nagaki Island.
Hmm.
That's what we called it. And then there's like a smaller island or a couple of small islands off
Right.
near your property.
Hmm.
And then I remember when I had a Jeep, I don't know if you know this. So dad took me down and we took my Jeep and we drove on that smaller island, just kind of like went around. It was fun because we had to like go through part of the river to get to it.
Hmm.
It was when it was low, kind of like I think it was towards the end of summer. And then so we're able to make it up to the island by vehicle. And it was fun. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun too.
Yeah, that would be
And
fun.
then dad was pushing me to do stuff. I'm like, this is kind of iffy. I'm not gonna do this. And so yeah, your property is fun. And yeah, there's a lot of things to do. So obviously with working with curb and turf and being a property owner, what do you think it would be like the biggest value that a property owner could gain from curb and turf, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So, um, well, for me, probably, more along the lines of, just being able to make some extra money on the side, and also, because seeing some of the land that otherwise wouldn't be used getting used for something. Because, like I mentioned, there's just because of the way our property is situated, there's chunks of land that we really just can't do anything with. And so, having a place where, our viewers could stay, something that they can do. And then also, it gives an opportunity to, you know, I guess make money from some of the other things we can do on the property, like milling. Like I actually on CurbNTurf they have the a la carte options, right? So I added a couple of those. Like just teaching people how to mill a log because I enjoy milling, but finding people who want anything that I mill or make from it is a bit of a chore. So having an excuse to show someone how to mill wood, like that's something I enjoy. Or, if someone wanted to buy some from me, that'd be fine too. But, or even just like the llamas, like actually it's kind of cool just being, owning land and having the llamas, when you're out feeding the llamas, like I'll be doing later today, it's not too uncommon because the llamas all come right there, but for people to slow down and almost stop just so they can look at the llamas or to get out just to see llamas because people just love seeing llamas. And so, having experiences with llamas is another thing that I added as an a la carte option.
That's that's cool, and that's something I really didn't think about. Is just that if there is a passion project that you have, you could share that with other guests or
Hmm.
travelers. Add that to the a la carte, and then you're sharing something that you love, and then also getting, you know, potentially you could get income from that. Some people may offer that for like a free service. It depends on how you set it up, right?
Right.
So you could set it up as if you want to make a little money, and it might not be much or it might be a lot, whatever you decide to do with it, because there's tons of features with curb and turf that you could potentially implement with the a la carte options. Like you're saying, whether it's having experiences, you're teaching them a lesson, giving tours. There's a lot offering products. So the a la carte option is just a really great feature for hosts, especially to gain money, right? And
Hmm.
they're able to have a side income besides just hosting RVers. So we definitely encourage anyone that's looking to host property to fill out the a la carte option, just because when especially RVers that when they go to a property, they're looking for experiences and they're
Hmm.
looking to do things that's generally how they're planning their trip, right? So it's really important for RVers to know what options are available. And then if you're able to offer those, whether it's firewood or whatever it is, go ahead and offer those. And then that it'll attract more travelers, it'll attract more guests if that's what you're looking to do.
Hmm.
If you're, want to go the opposite, sometimes you just want to share your property and then just have, get to know people, but not, do the extra work. like Jed was talking about, there's extra work, but you're also getting, he's sharing something that he loves, and but he could potentially earn money off that also, which is kind
Right.
of cool.
Yeah, and I think for both of those, I do charge a little bit, but basically just enough to, weed out people who aren't actually interested from those who really do have an interest in the subject.
Right, and it's also your time too.
Hmm.
Even though you probably enjoy doing it, you're still, at least you're getting some cost from your time too. So,
Yeah.
and there's probably materials and stuff that go into that. So, yeah, I think so. Anyone that's looking to do that sort of thing, we have just go to our website. It's www.curbandturf.com, and you'll be able to sign up as a host. We have a hosting page on the website, or you could also go to any of the app stores. If you go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, you'll be able to download our app. What are some other cool features that we have in the app or on
Uh,
the website, I guess, on the platform?
yeah, so for the most part, most sites have the stuff that's on the app is and on the website is mostly the same. There are a couple of things on the app that aren't on the website. I think that's just like checklists. But we have stuff like a trip planner. So if you're planning a trip, like let's say you're going to Yellowstone, which, since I'm on the western side of Idaho, that's quite a trip. You know, I have driven that in the day before, but if you're planning that trip and you're wanting to make it more enjoyable for the family, we have a trip planner so you can put, your destin look for places in that area and what's along the path, and it show you a path along there, and you can figure out where you want to stay and places that are available. So that's one feature. We have listed a bunch of like dump sites for RVers to you know empty their sewage from their place, which is, I guess, a nice time as a host. I do have place hosted, but I don't actually have any real amenities that I can provide RVs. I mean, I could run an extension cord for just like, the normal 15 amp or 20 amp line, just, the basic home outlet, but I don't provide that as an amenity. So, and RVers, they don't need that necessarily. Most of them can go for, a day or two without providing those, which is one of the cool things about RVers is they don't need to have, they don't need a restroom, they don't need power, they don't need water. The power and water especially are beneficial. And like I said, I could let them hook up to my, water spigot, and they could run an extension cord, but I don't have anywhere they could empty their septic tank. So, we have dump sites for them so they could find a nearby one, because there's actually just one just a couple miles from my house into the city park where they could go and they can just empty their septic without me having to provide that. So it provides that, and we also have a way for them to see other activities that are in the area, which, you know, I've gone in and we've added various activities. I've added some specifically for the Payette area. I know Aaron, he's added some as well, like some of the parks and golf courses and other activities around.
Yeah, things are getting added to the website constantly, and so and we're that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those places. Any again, if you're a host, like Jed's saying, you don't have to. If you're a potential host, you don't have to have those hookups. You don't have to have electricity. Sure, it'd be nice, but we offer information to where RVers could actually see what's available on the property. And then not only that, if they're like you were saying, if there's no dump sites at that particular location, they could search for a number of free dump sites or other dump sites that might cost a minimum charge or whatever,
Mhm.
to where they could use those facilities. So it's and that trip planner is huge, like you were mentioning earlier. The trip planner is a great feature for RVers to actually plan that. Those are the trip planner is actually getting updated as we speak. So probably the next update or so when we do the app, though, you'll notice those changes. If you're again, we're constantly working on the app, we're constantly working on the website. So the CurbNTurf platform in general, we're always looking for improvements on those. Another thing that those might be interested that have an agribusiness, we started a challenge just recently within probably the last couple months. So if you go to www.agritourismchallenge.com, you'll be able to sign up. It's a free 5-day course in which we give you information on how to start an agritourism business. And not only that, how to make money off your property. And we give you a lot of cool tips and tricks about advertising, about marketing, how to work with your local government, how to work. So there's just a lot of information that we're want to provide to hosts or property owners, especially that are looking to supplement their income. So I just want to thank Jed for being on our program today. Obviously, we pretty much a lot of our episodes the employees of CurbNTurf, and that's for a reason. It's just to get to so you could get to know us. We want people to know how proud we are of the platform. Not only that, we want to help those out there understand what CurbNTurf is and what we do. We want to make sure that we help not only our hosts but our guests, which are typically are going to be RVers. And so we're by providing that platform and providing this podcast, that's our audience. And if you guys ever have suggestions, go ahead and comment where you can. If it's on YouTube, on other platforms where we have our podcasts, we appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you, Jed, joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon. So that's it for today's episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over, Jed, or do you think that's good enough for today?
Yeah, I think that's good. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good having you. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
All
Bye.
right, see ya.